Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And you're watching us on the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV and listening to us around the world on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Mutual Broadcast Network, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and of course, Talkstar Radio Network. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for our programming schedule on the X-Zone TV channel, go to simultv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on before. His name is Dan Baldwin. But tonight we're talking to Dan about his new book entitled Psychic Detective Guidebook. And Dan's website is danbaldwin.biz. And Dan, welcome back to the X-Zone.
Oh, it's good to be back. Delightful to talk to you again.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we went to air, and it's a very cold 103 in Mesa, Arizona.
Mesa, Arizona. Yeah, it's down to 103.
So does that mean you turn the heaters on tonight and you put
Yeah,
on
it's
your
what
woolly
we call
jammies?
sweater weather.
Yeah. You know what? I'm starting to sweat just thinking of 103. But Dan,
Yeah, once it hits about 108, it's hot.
you were telling me yesterday or the day before it was up to 113?
Yeah, yesterday we hit 112 yesterday.
Oh, my good God.
Yeah.
And is this natural weather for Arizona, or is this the non-existent thing called climate control?
It's non-existent thing called climate
Yeah.
control. It happens. Well, let's see. Every summer it gets hot. It's amazing.
But this summer is a little extra hot?
Not really. 20 years ago when we moved in, the day we moved in our house, the day we moved the heavy furniture, it got up to 122.
Whoa! And where did you move? Where did you move to Arizona from?
Yeah, we were born. My wife and I were born and raised in northwest Louisiana.
Oh,
So we moved from the swamp to the desert.
well, no happy medium with you, is there?
Yeah.
Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself for the listeners who weren't with us last time you joined us.
Yeah. Well, basically, I am a self-employed writer, full-time writer. Have about 60 books to my credit that have been published. 50 of them have somebody else's name on the cover. I'm what they call a ghostwriter.
Right.
But I've also got about 10 or 12 books that are novels or short story collections to my name. And recently, I've gotten involved in this, as you know, this paranormal thing. So
Right.
I've gotten, let's see, I have 6 books on the paranormal out now, nonfiction works.
Wow. What is your favorite aspect in the paranormal?
My favorite aspect is kind of like in my ghostwriting. Everything is new. Every day is a new adventure. Every day is a new excitement. Every day you learn something new about
Right.
the paranormal.
And what got you interested in the paranormal?
I've got to credit my friends and co-authors Dwight and Rhonda Hull from southern Arizona.
Right.
Yeah, you've interviewed them before, but on our book, Speaking with Spirits of the Old Southwest,
Right.
they got me interested in going down and exploring, ghost towns and haunted houses and places like that. And I really basically got infected with it. I mean, I love doing that. And out of that research, came that book. And that's kind of where my psychic career is now trending, towards more paranormal research. So, and as I said earlier before the program, I've got like 15 or so years of psychic detecting behind me. So I thought I'm not really leaving that field, but I'm moving into another area. I thought I would put that experience to use and put it in the book and leave it behind. So maybe I can help somebody else who's interested in becoming a psychic detective.
How old were you when you first discovered that you had the gift of being a psychic?
Really, I am a self-described psychic on training wheels. I came to it rather late in life. In fact, a true story. I mean, I came to it about, I guess the realization hit when I was about 50 years old. I'm 68 now. But, looking back, I can see that, there are episodes all the way through my life that I just didn't recognize. And I became aware of it at about age 50.
Wow. What was it like the first time you realized that you were a psychic in training and that you had to get yourself some training wheels?
Really, when I was working missing kid cases by myself, I just felt drawn to do that.
Right.
That's what brought me into it. And I got to meet several psychics who were also doing the same thing, and we would meet and discuss a case and things like that. And the other psychics are the ones who told me, Dan, you need to really start doing this seriously. Like the rest of us, you have a gift, you need to put it to use. So really that was kind of my first validation that, maybe there is something to this. And maybe I'm one of the ones that can do it.
When you were growing up in Louisiana, did you ever experience the psychic phenomenon? And when you did, what did you do about it?
Oh, well, as a kid, and I did nothing about it. As a kid, I would say, I would tell my mother, "Hey, my aunt is about to call you," and then the phone would ring, and it would be my aunt. Or I would say something like, the postman is about to arrive. He's got a package for you.
Yeah.
5 minutes later, the postman would arrive with a package. That sort of thing. And I really never thought about it.
Well, the same thing happened to me when I was a kid. I was walking. We lived in Chambly, and to get to the home from the highway where the bus let you off, it was about a 1.5 mile walk, and it was beautiful. It was right beside a river, and it was the best place in the world for a kid to grow up. In the winter, we had skating rinks on the river. We had the riverbanks for tobogganing. In the summertime, it was fishing. It was just great. But this one day, I'm walking home and pass a couple of the neighbors, and I get home, and my mom says, "So, how are you today?" I said, "Fine." I said, "By the way, Mrs. Bracken's pregnant." And my mother just looked at me, and she said, "What?" I said, "Mrs. Bracken is pregnant." Now, Mrs. Bracken was not married.
Oops.
Yeah. Her husband, she and her husband had been divorced. She already had about 6 or 7 kids. And my mother said, "I'm going to call up Pat right now. And if you're lying, I'm going to give you a smack in the face." Well, my mother gets a hold of Pat on the phone, and I'm standing there saying, "Oh, I'm going to get a hitting. I'm going to get a beating." And, my mother asked Pat if she was pregnant, and Pat said, "Of course not, Lottie. Come on." Anyway, to make a long story short, it was about 6-7 months later when Mrs. Bracken gave birth. And ever since that time, I got that hit for telling the truth. I blocked it.
Yeah, I did. I did too. I wish at the time someone had told me, "Hey, Dan, you've got a little gift here. You really got to start developing it." But back then, I was in the 50s and early 60s.
Wow.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay, yeah. Just, that was something that just wasn't discussed.
Yeah,
it really wasn't encouraged.
That's right. And yet, later on in life, during my years as a police officer, whether it was in patrol or on criminal investigations, that gift came in very handy. And I think a lot of cops have it because we talk about that gut feeling we got. Because nobody wanted
in fact, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, because nobody wanted
That just happened to me the other day. I was making a presentation. Again, I went back to Louisiana.
Right.
And was making a presentation to a club.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a policeman there, and he was a skeptic. I asked him directly. I said, "Do you believe in psychic phenomena?" He said, "No."
Yeah.
I said, "Do you believe in cop instinct?" He said, "Well, yeah, obviously."
No difference.
Yeah, I said, you are a practitioner of psychic ability. You've got it. You just call it cop instinct.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way."
Well, you and I are going to be talking this hour about your new book. It's called Psychic Detective Guidebook. And I'm anxious to hear what you have to say because I know that you've worked on law enforcement cases. And you know what? My hat is off to you because I know that you're a person who is doing what you're doing to help other people. And in today's world, that, my friend, along with your psychic ability, is a true gift. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Stand by, Dan. You and I have to take our first break. In Exo Nation, Dan Baldwin is my special guest for this hour. His website is danbaldwin.biz. We're going to be talking to Dan about his new book, Psychic Detective Guidebook. Now, this is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Now, if you'd like to send me an email, it's xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And, of course, to find out what's on the air on the X-Zone Broadcast Network 24/7, 365 with our compliments, www.xzbn.net. And for the broadcast schedule of the X-Zone TV channel and the great programming we have there, www.simultv.com. Dan Baldwin is my guest. I am Rob McConnell. We'll return. Don't go away. Exonation, Dan Baldwin is my special guest this hour. His website is danbaldwin.biz. And for all Dan's books, you can visit fournightspress.com. And by the way, I love their logo. I guess we can call it a logo or their mission statement. I believe that if life gives you lemons, you should make lemonade. And try to find somebody whose life has given them vodka and have a party. Oh, you've got to love it.
Philosophy, you know.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Dan, tell us about your new book that we're going to be talking about, the Psychic Detective Guidebook. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, again, as I'm moving into this other paranormal investigation field, it occurred to me that I do have more than 15 years experience in, real world out there on the streets, psychic detecting.
Right.
And that's a lot of information. And I thought there are a lot of people out there who probably want to be psychic detectives, or at least are interested in how that really works. And I said, well, I can put all this information in a book, and it will be there for people to read from now on. So I put in there, case studies of true psychic detecting. I've interviewed some of the best, the finest practicing psychic detectives in the world on an international level, and then my own experiences and my own, basically how-to steps to become a psychic detective.
So who have you interviewed that are internationally acclaimed psychic detectives?
Okay, well, again, my friend Rhonda Ho will be one. He is a gifted intuitive. But also Chris Robinson, the famous dream detective. Patricia Mona from up there in Canada, by the way. A very gifted psychic up there. Glenda Newton is one. A good friend of mine over here, Dwayne Brock. I've got a body language expert, Renata Mousseau, from over here in the Phoenix area. Just try to spread it around a lot so that I could get a lot of different people with a lot of different perspectives and who have a lot of different gifts.
Oh, all right. You interview all these different psychics, and how do they contribute to your book, Psychic Detective Guidebook? Do they give ideas on how to become a psychic detective, or how to enhance your psychic ability so that you can become a psychic detective?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
What I wanted to do was I sent each one of them a very short list of questions, and I said, fill this out and answer it whatever way you wanted to answer it, and then I did not edit their answers whatsoever, so you get the undiluted perspective of each individual.
Yeah, but
the questions there would include what advice would you give to someone on developing your skills? What advice would you give to someone who is looking to become a psychic detective? And then ask them to tell a successful or even an unsuccessful case story. But the idea is to undiluted give the reader real-world experiences of real-world psychics, what it's really like.
Okay, so what were some of the aha moments that you had while you were putting this book together with all the information that these psychics had supplied you?
I really didn't have an aha moment where anything new came up because, like I said, I've been doing it for more than 15 years, and I know all these people. I've known them for most of those 15 years. So there wasn't any real surprise.
So
I was just delighted and honored that they would agree to be part of my book.
So why do the book if you knew everything that they were going to say? Why not write the book yourself?
I wanted the reader to have the perspective of different people practicing different skills from different parts of the world. I didn't just want it to be, this is the way Dan says it is, and that's the way it is.
Right. How much variance is there in the techniques used by the different psychics?
Oh, Lord, it crosses the board. Like I said, Renata is a body language expert. Chris is a dreamer. He will go to sleep with a problem on his mind, and he will dream about it, and then he'll wake up and he'll record the dream, and the symbols in his dream will relate to specific things. My friend Dwayne Brock is a very good pendulum dowser. So you got the full range of skills there.
But how does being a psychic detective work with somebody who is using pendulum dowsing or dream interpretation? Where does this fit into psychic phenomena?
Well, that is psychic phenomena itself, and you're just using your skill to answer questions. Like with the pendulum, I will ask yes or no questions.
Right.
For example, you get a missing person case. I will ask right off the bat, is this missing person physically alive? I get a yes or a no. And then I will try to locate, say, the missing person. Is this missing person in the United States? Is this missing person in Arizona? Is this missing person in Maricopa County? Is this missing person in the city of Phoenix? Kind of a yes or no series of questions so that you narrow the box of information around whatever you're looking till you get a final answer.
And when it comes to psychic detective work, whether it's the old psychic way that people can usually associate a psychic, or dowsing, or dream interpretation, body language, what is the success rate when it comes to the accuracy of the answers that they supply?
Yeah, I would say probably 80% would be a good benchmark.
Well, that's pretty good.
And yeah, but then again, it varies case by case. Like, for example, I will have times when I am like 100% right on the money. I mean, I will say the missing person is at this place, and they'll find him within 300 feet. Other times, I will be like, hundreds or thousands of miles off base. It just depends on the situation. Psychics, like everybody else, have on days and off days.
I was just going to say that you people are human as well, and everybody has on days or off days.
Yeah, a psychic with a head cold is not going to be as good as a psychic that's in good health.
Well, a psychic with a head cold should find another psychic who has a life that has given them vodka and party on.
Yes. Excuse me.
No problem.
Yeah, one thing about being a psychic detective, it's like anything else. If you drink or do drugs or something like that, it's going to affect you. The same thing, if you have a fight with your spouse or you have a fight with your boss or if you stub your toe, it's going to affect your reading just because you're a human being.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. That's why if it's a really important case, and most of them are, I try to do at least 3 readings over at least 3 separate days, just because of that factor.
The fact that psychics are humans, and Lord knows we're not perfect, does the environment also affect the psychic readings? For example, cell towers, the weather, anything that is out of the control of the psychic. Does this affect your ability and your accuracy?
I would say only in the sense that it would affect your focus, as if you were reading a book or doing study. In other words, if you've got a violent lightning storm outside, that's going to draw your attention away from whatever you're doing.
Okay.
Whether it's a psychic work or studying your homework or doing a report for the boss. If there's a car wreck that suddenly happens outside, that's going to draw your focus away.
The information that you gather from the person who is missing, is it like that they're using their brain or their unknown abilities to send out an SOS beacon that they are unaware of, that they're actually sending out, and you as a psychic detective have the ability to pick up that signal and home in on it?
I do not have that gift. I have met a couple of people who say that they do have that gift. In other words, I can tell that a missing person is over on the other side of the ridge or something like that. But I do not have that gift. One of the things that your listeners and viewers should be aware of: psychic detectives generally get called in as kind of a last resort.
Yeah.
In other words, it's like, well, we've tried everything else. We may as well give the psychics a shot. Well, by that time, if it's a missing person case, chances are the missing person is already deceased. So there's nobody there to give out a distress signal.
In your opinion, who gives out a louder distress signal, so to speak? Is it a child, a teen, an adult, or a senior, or is the signal all the same?
I would say, again, this is not from personal experience, but from talking with people, the strength of the signal actually depends upon the energy behind it. So it doesn't matter whether it's an old person or a young person or a middle-aged person. It's the power of the fear or whatever that powers that distress signal more than anything else.
How many missing persons or how many cases have you worked with law enforcement?
Oh, good Lord, I don't know. It would be in the hundreds.
Wow.
You're talking 15 years, so 1 or 2 or 3 cases a month for 15 years, it adds up.
That many cases a month?
Yeah.
Do the law enforcement officers come to you, or do you volunteer your services?
It depends. Generally, they will come to us, and sometimes it'll be a family member who will come to us, the psychics. And in those cases, I recommend that you work, if you accept the case, work directly with the local authorities or whoever the authority is on that case.
Right.
But yeah, we've worked with local police, local sheriff's department. We've worked with the FBI. We've worked with the Forest Service. We've worked with gendarmes. We've worked with carabinieri, whatever they call them over in Italy.
Right. All right, stand by, Dan. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Our Nation Dan Baldwin is our guest, www.danbaldwin.biz. And for all Dan's book, you can visit his publisher's website, www.fournightspress, and that's F-O-U-R, Nights, K-N-I-G-H-T-S, press.com. And Dan and I will return on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues right here on Simul TV and the X Zone Broadcast Network. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Dan Baldwin is our guest. www.danbaldwin.biz. Dan, tell us about the most memorable case that you have worked on as a psychic detective.
Most memorable?
Yes, sir.
That would be a toughie. One would be, I guess, I'm trying to think what would be the most fascinating for your readers. Possibly I'm trying to remember what would be best.
Well, just give us one that from the top of your head.
Okay, well, one of the best, I guess, would be a case we worked up in the Mogollon Rim area of Arizona. We had a guy who went missing, and he was an avid camper. He had a four-wheel drive. He was an avid camper, hiker, and his family knew that there was something wrong, but they only knew that he would be in Arizona or New Mexico or Utah or possibly Colorado. So several of us we're working on this case together, and each of us got, really at that time, just a piece of the puzzle. One person got the fact that the person was missing, had stopped off at a small general store run by a little old man, and he had bought some camping supplies. That's all she got. Another person just got the number 260. That's all she got. Another person got that, this is someone I knew in Australia. She got a vivid impression of the place where the guy was camping. She described it, what turned out to be a perfect description of the site. She said he was camped near a dirt road, near a lake. There were some structures like corrals around him. It was a proper camping area. He was in a tent, and there were red stripes around the tree. She did not know what the red stripes were. Again, that was a perfect description of the location, but that description fit hundreds or thousands of locations, you know, in those 4 states. You know, dirt road, trees, lake, that sort of thing. You know, it's a perfect description, but it's absolutely no help whatsoever until you get to that location. I did my pendulum dowsing, and I got out my topological maps, and I dowsed a specific road, you know, after half a day at work. But I said, if you follow this particular road, it was a forest road, and you go to X spot, there was some kind of marker there, like a low water bridge. I said he will be within 1 mile north of that spot, 50 yards off the road. So if you go to that spot, walk 50 yards into the woods, and go north, you'll find him within 15 minutes. So the family got this information. They dashed up that area, and they were on that road, and they met a guy coming out, and they told him, showed him the missing person folder and everything that they had. And he said, "Oh yeah, they found him this morning. Unfortunately, he had committed suicide."
Oh.
Yeah, and so they went to the site, and it was exactly as the lady had described it. It was it was a tent. Had the clouds there, had the lake there, had the dirt road there. The red striping was paint that sprayed on by the Forest Service. They were going to thin out the trees. They had stopped at a little roadside stand, and the guy had stopped there to buy some groceries from a little old man. The road that I had doused was off highway number 260, and when they got to the spot, he was 50 yards directly off the road where I had doused that he was, where he was located.
Amazing. Truly amazing.
Yeah, interesting thing about that is when I did my initial dowsing work, I got that he was physically alive but in extreme danger. So I think when I began my work, I had made contact probably within minutes of the time that he had shot himself, because I got he was definitely in a life or death situation, but that he was physically alive.
Is there a difference between the work that you do with the other psychics? For example, in this case, you had somebody in Australia and you had other psychics working with you around the United States. Is a little bit of this psychic, and is this a little bit of what is known as remote viewing, or are they, in your opinion, one and the same?
I think they're one and the same. I've toyed with remote viewing, but I haven't practiced it. But there's definitely something to that. I think that's another psychic ability. I like to do dowsing because I can get more specific answers. Again, you could remote view, and I could have drawn that. For example, I'm making this up, but say I had drawn that location where we found the suicide. I could have drawn a perfect description of the site, but you still wouldn't know where the site was.
Now, when you
so I prefer the pendulum, because I can say, is he on this road, this road, this road, or this road, and get a yes or no answer.
But when you're doing this, asking these questions to the pendulum, do you have a map in front of you? How do you narrow it in?
Yeah, okay. Sometimes I use a map. It depends on the situation. Mostly I ask yes or no questions. And you're not really asking the pendulum. You're allowing the pendulum is something that distracts your conscious mind. That allows your subconscious mind to address the higher power, and you can define that higher power however you want to, but that's how you work it. You're getting the answer from a higher power. And I can sit down and just ask a list of yes or no questions. And like in this situation, I did yes or no. Is he in Arizona? Got a yes. Is he in northern Arizona? Got a yes. Is he, is he the east of Payson, Arizona? Got a yes. At that point, I can get out a map, a topological map, and start honing in on it. Is he north of this road? Is he west of this road? Is he north of this bridge? That sort of thing.
Wouldn't the pendulum also have the ability to, if you're holding it over a map, to kind of position itself over the area where the person is?
Yeah, you can do that. In fact, you can take a ruler and just say address the higher consciousness and say, give me a yes movement when I'm on the east-west latitude. And when you get a yes, you draw a line. And you can do it the other way. Give me a yes when I am crossing the north-south line. When you get a yes from your pendulum, you can draw a downward line, and all of a sudden X marks the spot.
Yeah.
There it is.
When you're working, once again, with all the different psychics that you worked with on this case, does this amplify the collective's psychic ability?
I really don't think so, and then that's just my personal opinion, because we're all working separately. If you're a psychic detective and you're working with a group, which I recommend that you work separately and then compare notes, because if you work together at first, you're probably going to influence somebody else.
How so?
Well, in other words, say I'm a beginning psychic,
yeah,
and I'm working with a very experienced psychic. Either one of us may be equally right, equally wrong, but if I'm the young guy and this more experienced person gets an answer, I'm going to be intimidated and that may shade my answer, may shade my reading. So I advise do your reading by yourself, get all that done, and then if you want to, go ahead and compare notes and see what you come up with.
You were saying that the answers come from the higher power. How would you describe that? Who is the higher power? What is the higher power? Is this the Akashic Records? Is this the spiritual realm? How do you describe it to people who are not psychics or who are for the first time listening in saying, what's the higher power?
Yeah, when I do my pendulum classes, I don't like to get involved in discussions of religion. Mm-hmm. So I define the higher power, as a great, big, nice pink saw something in the sky.
Why pink?
It's a pretty soft color.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want to get involved in. When I'm teaching a class, I don't want to get involved in a religious discussion because that takes us away. But you would, define it however you want to. God, the Akashic Records,
right.
The universe. I just don't get into that.
How long do your courses take, and what's involved?
Oh, generally, like the local library will call up and say, "Hey, can you do a course?" So I'll do about an hour course, and I just kind of do basically a demonstration and then ask questions.
So
the pendulum work is very simple. It's time consuming and at times arduous, but the process is extremely simple.
What is the pendulum made of? Is it a piece of like a gold chain or silver chain with a crystal at the bottom?
It doesn't matter. I'll give you an example. We were doing Dwight Rhonda and I were doing a search down in a ghost town, actually a cemetery of a ghost town down in near Tombstone, Arizona, a place called the Cortland Cemetery. And I forgot my pendulum. For some reason, I had just left it. So we stepped out. I stepped out of my truck, stepped back in, cut a shoestring from an old pair of shoes, picked up a rock on the floor, tied a string around the rock, and that was my pendulum.
Wow. And it worked?
Yeah, there's nothing whatsoever magic about the pendulum. It's just a weight on the string. And what that weight is totally irrelevant.
But if it's not magic, what is it?
Again, it's just a way, it's an instrument. It's a way of connecting with that higher power. All psychic work is connecting with a higher power of some kind. And for me, this is just the best, most effective way of connecting with that higher power.
In your opinion,
I would like to be able to do it, without the pendulum, but those are my training wheels right now.
Gotcha. We've got to take a break very shortly. But in your opinion, can anyone learn how to be a pendulum dowser? Yes.
Like I said, the process is extremely simple. The discipline is hard. The discipline is very hard, but the process itself you can pick up in no time.
All right, stand by, Dan. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. X-Zone Dan Baldwin is our guest. www.danbaldwin.biz is his website. And to find out where you can go to buy Dan's books, www.fournightspress.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Dan Baldwin and I will be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget the X Chronicles newspaper with our compliments each and every month. Brand new, minimum 92 pages to read online or download at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. Dan Baldwin is my special guest this hour. X-Zone Nation, www.danbaldwin.biz. And his publisher, where you can buy Dan's books, www.fournightspress.com. And Dan, there was another website you'd like to let our listeners know about it.
Yeah, if your folks would like to follow our psychic adventures, Dwight, Rhonda, and I have a site, www.believeparanormal.com, and that's believe spelled with two E's, Beelieve.
Now, you also have a book that teaches people how to dowse, am I correct?
Yeah, if people are interested in learning how to dowse, my book is called The Practical Pendulum, and it's a very basic how-to guide on how to do the practical pendulum. And I touched briefly on the metaphysical aspects of it, but really it covers just the basics of it. Yeah, this is what it is. This is how you do it. This is what to watch out for. That sort of thing.
What's the difference between the dowsing that you do and the dowsing that we're all familiar with from watching Western movies, when you've got the dowser who comes in with the Y-shaped branch or twig and goes out into the field, and all of a sudden you see them shaking the long
the
part.
old witching stick.
Yeah, it goes down.
Yeah, they call it the witching stick. Yeah, there's no difference whatsoever, except for the fact that you're using a different tool.
That's
it's the same mentally and psychically. It's the same process, whether you're using a dowser, a rod. A dowsing rods, the L rods is what they call them, or a witching stick, or a pendulum. It's the same basic psychic process. You're just using a different tool.
For those listeners who weren't with us the last time you were with us, we were talking about the work that you did in the old Western towns. Can you share a couple of stories with us?
Oh God, this is one of the reasons that it's so fascinating. It's really I'm drawn to this. Is that Dwight, Rhonda, and I are really Old West fanatics. And we believe that one of the best ways to study what actually happened in the Old West is to interview the people who lived there at the time.
That makes sense.
So we go out to ghost towns or ghost ranches or abandoned mines and try to make contact with the spirits that are out there and basically do research.
How willing are the spirits to sharing their past or their lives with you?
Very willing, and I think that's due to our attitude. We go out. We're very respectful. We don't challenge anybody. We don't confront anybody. We go in. Our approach is, if you're going into a haunted house, you're still going into a house where somebody lived. You're going into their house, and we go into their house as if we would the house of a living person. We ask permission to go in, ask permission to speak with them, and we're very friendly and open. And we seem to be getting an awful lot of responses. And one of the things that is unique about our book is that we have extended conversations. In other words, we don't just grab an EVP, electric voice phenomenon, and say, "Hey, we got something." We actually have extended conversations with the spirits, and mostly they're very willing to talk.
I would imagine that the spirits who are willing to talk do not get the opportunity very often, because I'm sure that when other groups or other researchers go in who love to tantalize and who love to challenge why this is done, I have no idea, except for the sensationalism that people thrive these days. They shun away. So when they have the opportunity of speaking to somebody like yourself and your two colleagues, they welcome the ability to share their life. Do any of them ever question as to why they're still there if they're dead?
No, we ask them the same question. And one of the things we are learning, and again, we are not experts at this thing. We are students. We learn something new every time we go out. But one of the things we are finding is that once you cross over, you have an awful lot of options. And some of those options include coming back over to this side. And the reason for coming over to this side are really varied. We're finding people who come back over to relive a very happy experience, or just to come back over and relive a peaceful experience. A lot of people come back over to help people who are trapped on this side to go ahead and cross over.
Could it be then that what we call guardian angels are actually guardian spirits?
That could be. Could very well be.
Have you come across any famous people that we might know from history in your investigations into the Old West?
Yeah, very rarely. Mostly we run into folks.
Yeah.
Just folks. But we ran into, I guess one of our favorites would be Mattie Earp.
Wow.
Celia Ann Blaylock, the common law wife of Wyatt Earp. We have spoken with her several times. And we kind of consider her an unofficial member of the team.
What is she?
Mattie has... I'm sorry, Maddie has taught us an awful lot about the Old West and about her life. She had an extremely tragic life.
What's it like being involved with history at such a unusual level?
It's fascinating. One, you learn a lot. Also, at times it can be extremely emotional. We have helped people cross over from this side to the other side with the help of spirits. So, like Dwight, Rhonda, and I will be working to free a spirit with the help of someone who's come back over to help that spirit cross over. It can be extremely emotional.
Has there ever been a time when you've actually seen a full-bodied apparition or experienced a touch, a whisper, a feeling, a scent, when communicating with the spirits of the Old West?
Yeah, and that's something Dwight and Rhonda are much more gifted at that area than I am. They've been doing it all their lives. They can actually, when the energy is there, they can actually see a spirit, or at least an image of a spirit, or they can definitely sense a spirit. And all three of us have heard a voice, and every once in a while you'll get a scent or a feeling, something like that. But that's more their skill than mine. But overall, the answer is yes.
You are saying that it's very emotional at times, and you've helped spirits cross with the help of other spirits. Can you explain how this happens, or what you and your two friends do in order to accomplish such a wonderful thing? Yeah,
definitely. A good example, simple. Well, the first time we went out, we didn't know if our skills would mesh. Can intuitives work with a dowser? Can we make contact? Is it worth the effort? We went to a place called the Cortland Jail, which is not 14, 15 miles out of Tombstone. It's a ghost town. We were in the jail, and we recorded this, and we realized, we made contact with someone, and this was a man who had killed somebody, and he was afraid to cross over because of he feared punishment on the other side. So we're working with the guy, and Rhonda's real good about conversing with spirits to help them cross over. And we discovered there was another spirit there,
right,
with us. And this was the spirit of the person he had killed, who had crossed over. And basically, he had come back to say, "Hey, you're forgiven. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's okay to cross over." And when we found that was me, Dwight, and Rhonda, and a ghost, a spirit, helping another ghost, another spirit, go into the light, so to speak. And when that happened, it went like bam. It was like that. And I said, "They're gone." And the three of us just teared up just instantly.
Do you feel a difference in the atmosphere? How do you know the person's gone? I know from experience that pet owners, when the final moments of a pet's time on this side of the veil is over and the spirit or the soul moves on, they smell roses, they feel a difference in the atmosphere. But when it comes to the spirit crossing, going to the light, how does it feel to you as one of the people who are making this transition happen?
Yeah, well, again, I'm just speaking from my personal experience.
Yes, of course.
The very few times that we've done this, only happened a couple of times. But the emotion was overpoweringly. I teared up, almost bawling, but in a good sense. And it was instantaneous. It wasn't like you're at a speech or somebody's funeral or whatever, and it builds and builds and builds until you're finally crying. It's like bam, and there's no way to fake that.
That's true.
It just happens, and you know it. I mean, when it happens to you, you know something has happened, and something very important has just happened, and you were part of it.
So what's next for you and your two friends and your exploits? So where are you going to be going?
Well, we've just finished a draft of our second book, follow-up book, and we're going to be submitting that to publishers. And then we're looking at exploring more ghost towns, exploring more ghost mines, exploring more haunted areas, and try to learn more about the old Southwest from the people who lived it.
Sounds like a plan. Well, as soon as you get that other book out, let us know. We'll get you back on.
I will let you know probably in a very short amount of time.
That's great.
I hope.
You're always welcomed here, Dan.
Hey, I love your show.
Thank you, sir. Let our listeners know your website, your publisher's website, and the website where you do all your blogging so that listeners can go and visit.
Okay, the blogging, you can go to www.fournightspress.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to track us on what we're doing in the psychic world, just www.believeparanormal.com. That's believe with 2 E's.
Right.
And you can get our books wherever you order your books. I mean, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you can order our books. And they're available in ebook and paperback.
Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourself, my friend. Keep the great work up, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone.
It's been a pleasure.
Take care, Dan. X Zone Nation, my guest this hour has been Dan Baldwin. His website is www.danbaldwin.biz. We'll be back on the other side of this break. For those of you who are watching us on the X Zone TV channel and Simul TV, and also for those of you listening around the world on iHeartRadio, Mutual Broadcast Network, and the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.